Welcome back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. We are here this week talking about embracing vulnerability and how that can lead to greater confidence.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think everyone knows that there's good on the other side of sharing vulnerably, but no one's really willing to make the leap.
Yeah.
For some reason, there's this thing that makes people think they're going to lose their respect or clout, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah. And I think it's partially too, nobody wants to look weak or look like they have, issues and struggles. And, and especially in social media life, everything is pristine and polished, and we only like to show the good.
Yeah. And, if we've learned anything, especially in our own circle of friends, the magic that happens when you're willing to let your guard down and be real and honest about the things that you're experiencing, especially the hard things, that's whenever the world gets to surprise and delight you with relationships that feel so much deeper and so much more meaningful.
Yeah, there's so much good on the other side of that, not just strengthening your own relationships, but just the message that you are sending that it's okay to normalize sharing the hard stuff.
Yeah. And, think about every movie you've ever seen. The reason that you loved the movie was never because it was just this pretty polished, happy-go-lucky experience the entire time. It was probably due in large part to the something they overcame, the thing, right? Whatever the hitch in the story was, that's the thing that had you so invested. And you guys seem to want to not have your own hitch. But your life is a story and there's going to be hiccups in the road, and you learning how to share those parts with people that you feel safe to share it with. I think there's so much magic that can happen from you for you in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think one of the things that I'm really interested in discussing with you, because you have this sort of corporate, more buttoned up work experience, is how you see vulnerability working well in the workplace and from a leadership perspective.
Yes. I think the best leaders are vulnerable with their teams and they lead by example and they share the hard stuff and they find ways to build that common ground. I think everybody goes through the hard stuff. And I think leaders who talk to their team about it, who normalize it, who don't make it a big, we need to talk like a dramatic production, but just sharing things that are tricky for them and how they are overcoming it makes them the best leaders.
For sure. And, I think people in a leadership position really do shy away from this because they don't want to lose that authority, and they want their coworkers or their colleagues or even their, the people that report to them, they want them to take them seriously. So there's this part where they feel like they kind of have to hide what they're feeling or experiencing from a work perspective. And that I actually just think creates more trust issues than anything. And if a leader is willing to go first and share some of that hard stuff first, I think what happens residually is that the team then responds in the same way.
Yes.
And it creates this two-way street of trust and respect with each other instead of I have to perform for you all the time, right?
Yeah, you are modeling the behavior that you want your team to be exhibiting.
And, if you want your team to be honest, open, and communicating with you, chances are really that you're going to have to lead with that. That you as the leader in the driver's seat of this vulnerability train, you're going to have to lead with that first. And that's super uncomfortable for people.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the hidden benefit of that, because if you are able to do that in a professional capacity, then you can do it with your friends, you can do it at home, you can do it with your kids, with your partner, and you start to kind of get the benefit of that in all areas of your life.
You know what's funny is I was just sitting here thinking that I would be much more apt to share vulnerably at home than I would professionally.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think a lot of women, the last domino is the work domino.
Yeah.
The first one is the best friend or the partner, then the kids or then the parents, right? And then you start to see okay, if I've done it in all these areas of my life and those relationships have been made more rich because of it, now I might be able to take this into a work capacity. Yeah. I think work is always the last domino. Maybe it's just me though. I'm interested to hear your perspective on that.
It's interesting. I think, look, there's plenty of people who are probably nicer to their colleagues than they are to their spouses.
Fair.
There's people at work who, I'm like, do you ever, you ever get super mad? I don't know, you keep it together here, and that's critically important, right? I'm not saying we need people to be flying off at the handle so that we can appreciate, them being real. But I do think it's common for, just like kids, they're buttoned up all day at school and then they come home and like let
The
loose.
wheels fall off the bus.
I think the same thing is true for adults, right? We keep it together at work and we try to show up in a way that's professional. And then we go home and like need a safe space to let loose a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reframes that's really helped me be willing to do this is just telling myself that when I'm going through a hard time and I'm trying to push myself to share more about that this is the part of the story that makes the story worth telling. And if you can just start to adopt that mindset that like the thing that you're going through right now does not define you or mean anything about your capability. It's just the part in the story where the things get really good.
Yeah.
If you can shift that story that you're telling yourself about what it means to be vulnerable, I think you'll have a lot easier time stepping into it.
Yes. And the other mindset shift that I think is really important is to recognize that it's really just a blip on the radar. It's such a small moment in time that it's going to pass and it's going to get better. But you should be able to share it with those around you and have it benefit them. And you also get the benefit of that increased connection and trust.
And so I hope that this encourages you to look at the ways in which you can introduce more vulnerability into your relationships and also into your leadership style as people who are out leading teams and running companies and doing all these incredible things. And I'll be interested to see, a year from now when we revisit this conversation, just how much your relationships in your professional life has changed from bringing this into the conversation.
Yeah. And I think a real practical way to do that is just think of 2 things right now that you can share, 2 things that are kind of tricky, and then go tell someone about them and see what happens.
Just mess around and find out. See what happens. All right. You guys, we'll talk to you soon. We hope you found this helpful.
Bye.